Over time in the Tradewell X Discord, which you're all welcome to come. It's free and read the Substack articles. Thank you, Milk, for sharing the article on the imprints last week, or yeah, it was last week. But that kind of material I just wanted to put out to help everyone. So the fractal has many features to it. And one of the things that I like to really consider regarding the fractal is approaching the information in two ways. One is contextual, and the other is actionable. If you watch the live stream that I did with the Futures Desk prop firm, I touched on this a bit. But one of the intimidating things regarding the fractal is that there are so many features and capabilities. Where do I start? Now, that is a very important question because when it comes to market data, there's a lot of data out there that you can use, market profile, order flow, fractal data. There's so many different pieces of data out there. I mean, real data, not made up lines and boxes and colors on a chart that have no data behind it, but real data. And one of the big challenges for traders that are wanting to be data based is not only finding good data, but finding actionable data and interpreting that data in a way that is conducive of a good position, one that makes money and manages your risk well. So, one of the hurdles, or can I say steep learning curves that people find themselves facing when or wanting to learn the fractal is how do I interpret this data in a way that helps me take a position? So I want to break down a little bit about that today and touch on how I approach the fractal in a way that goes from contextual to actionable. So if you tune me out for the rest of the town hall, just remember that. There are two key elements that I like to consider that hopefully help somebody today. And it's viewing the data either whether it's contextual for me or actionable for me. So I'm going to share my screen here. Um, and I just recently freed up some space on my Mac, so I shouldn't have any issues. But let me know when you see my screen. Does everyone see my screen? I mean, I should probably check the no screen yet, just rolling dice for me. Messages on my phone. I see it. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
And for those that can't see it right now, we'll just see the rolling dice. It's a Discord issue. Raghov is recording. So
Okay.
later.
Yeah. So if you're in the Tradewell X Discord community, you get these charts for both ES and NQ every day. But how do I compile this information? Well, I've learned from some very proficient fractal traders in this community, primarily Milk. I'm not ashamed to say I took Milk's mentorship about 6 months ago, and it was absolutely key to my growth and development for coupling order flow principles with the fractal. But over time, I also paid attention to different things that people would talk about, particularly Russell, Big and being another one, Amiva talking about bull and bear, negative $7 million values. There's so much homework that can be done in this community. And the investment that you're making today and being a part of this town hall reflects that. And so I encourage you to watch back this recording when it's posted, but really take some notes about approaching the market again in two layers. This is how I approach it. I hope that helps. And one is contextual, one is actionable. So, what do I mean by contextual? Well, I like to know what is happening in the bigger picture. There are a series of capabilities in the fractal that help you to know things like bias or develop a bias. And some of those key features are like the option analyzer, looking at the HL values. I talk a lot about this, the average mean wave as well. I talk a lot about these things in the article, but in the articles, but one of the things, basically how I approach it from day to day for my NQ values, I actually use QQQ because most of my trading is done during regular trading hours. And some might consider it overkill to do QQQ and then convert the values over to NQ. But I'm okay with being that precise because my NQ chart, I'm the levels that I get are literally like top ticking. Like the high of day right now is exactly my wave one H1 target. So I'm not complaining. It's a little bit more work, but it's kind of like you actually will hear Milk say a lot in RCG. You got to let the data speak. You got to be data driven because that's really where you have a sustainable approach to the market. It's not going to be based off of emotion. We're all going to lose some, or things are not going to go in our favor at times when it comes to different trades that we take. But at least the trade did not go in our favor at the right place. And so you have to protect yourself by just try to be as database as possible. And how I begin that process for myself is start looking at the wave one daily. It's very, very basic to look at. I'll look at QQQ and then do my conversions to NQ along the way. But I'll see whether or not we printed an H1 and an L1 for the day. I do this at the end of the day by around 4:15 p.m., 4:30, sometimes 5 o'clock, depending on how busy I am. And kind of just get a feel for where we've been, looking at the bigger picture. Just zoom out a little bit. I
I think
turn
you're
on
on.
this average. Oh man, that's unfortunate because I thought I fixed that issue. All right, I'm sharing again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. So I have this average mean wave on, which you can do in graph settings, but then I'll look over and I'll see where we've hit according to the probability bands. Just kind of get a read on this. You got to look at this hundreds of times to start getting used to it. And this is why you hear things like homework pays, or something like Milk says, or Biggin says in chat in RCG, patience, and he spells out patience with PAYTIENCE, because it really does it's really important because we have such access to great data. It's important to let the data speak so that you interpret it in a way where you don't make assumptions that position you poorly. And so due to that, I let the context be shaped by what the data is telling me. If we print an H1, I want to see what are the probabilities of an H2 or an L1 after crossing the vector and pivot. So I'll go to option analyzer and I'll start seeing these probabilities on the wave one daily. And then sometimes I even also sort the histogram in order to get my wave one, to get my either next H or my next L target. So I kind of just use a little cursor. Like let's just say, for example, we printed H1 today. I'll be looking at an H2 here, and the value will be down here. And I'll record that value as 568.01. I'll record that value. Sometimes I use this one, or sometimes I'll look back at the previous H2 and I compare the two. And typically I'll mark down the one that is closest to current price action as either a min or like just a plain H2 target. But I'll do the same for the other side for L1. And I'll approach this in different ways with discretion, of course, because you'll learn to allow the data to speak to you in a way where hey, if an L1 target on like the wave 10 daily is 520, I mean, that's like way down here. Like, just I'm giving you an example in theory. The only way we're getting to 520 is this a massive news drop. I mean, just something absolutely catastrophic, pretty much. But it's just not likely to happen. So very, very slim, very, very slim. So I just use that discretion and that experience to show myself, okay, I'm going for an L1, I'll actually look at the first imprint below pivot. This is on the wave one daily. And when I line up with that first imprint, lo and behold, it actually lines up with a previously closed open state that was also a double bottom. So I just pay attention to those kinds of things, pieces of information that will stack up on top of each other. This imprint over here that would have initially served as an L1 target for me also lines up with a previously closed open state and double bottom with this candle. So you want to allow the data to show you confluence or confluence, however it's pronounced, and follow the breadcrumbs. So when I talk about contextual lens or contextual approach, I'm getting an idea what a next H would look like, or an L would look like, a next H channel on the daily, or a next L on the daily. So I'm getting an idea and I'll mark out those kinds of levels. That's why you see my H1, L1 targets, sometimes min targets. Those, I really, really like those. In fact, if you just again look at today's, is my screen sharing? No, it's not. I'm so sorry, folks. I am so sorry. I wonder for how long I was without a stream. 12:16. That was probably 6 minutes. Stream's still running. Okay. You should be able to see my stream now. Yeah, right. Okay, cool. So touching on that H1, L1 target or the next H, next L target, I mean, look how much this thing works. For NQ, after my conversion from QQQ, it literally to the tick got high of day. That's how powerful letting the fractal data speak to you can be. You could literally top tick high of day. If I see bulls are defending this wave 7 daily vector, which shows us long term push, they're keeping it alive. And the wave 1 daily is staying alive. So it's basically previous day close. I'm letting this vectors speak to me, the price speak to me by its response to the vectors. Their target's going to be this H1. I mean, to the tick. And we rejected right off of that, which indicates to us that sellers are not agreeing. So letting the data speak to you. You know, sometimes I get asked, hey, Hector, by the way, that's my real name. And I don't mind if you know my real name, but just call me Roblesh. Um, hey, Roblesh, why do you have so many levels? Because some levels I allow the market to tell me are contextual. And other levels I let the market tell me are actionable. So if I'm sitting and I'm not in a position and the market is moving and the market is below, let's say I woke up this morning, right here, I'm looking at, and price has been above both my wave 1015, wave 7 hourly vectors. And I'm thinking, okay, we're generally long, but the issue with me trying to be biased long is that we already got that move overnight. And actually, in live charting yesterday in the Tradewell X Discord, we touched on this. We touched on an overnight move if buyers defended this down here, the bottom of this yellow area. You get this yellow area by using the market maker tool, by the way, on QQQ and convert it to NQ. And I literally longed at the bottom of this. It's called a dead zone, but it functions as an options implied pivot. You hear big and talking about it quite a bit here in RCG, but it's a pivot, essentially leaning long above, leaning short below. Because of the other levels that I had on here, including the weekly PML and this open state, and also the context of some imprints that we had discussed in live charting yesterday, buyer's ideal situation for pumping overnight. I literally said this yesterday before market open before 6 p.m. Their ideal situation to pump overnight is to bounce here. And that's exactly what happened. What happened, although, throughout this early morning is that we were having some consolidation in this area. And what I do is I also look at my ES chart. And what we were seeing on the ES is that we were driving into some open states that were already indicating to us of a possible reversion. And I actually took this play here. So I just let the data speak to me from both an NQ perspective and ES. Now, you don't have to do that yourself, but again, I'm trying to get as much data piled up to help me have confluence in my position. And so I took this short and I scaled out at a test of vector at 68. And then this zone down here, which was actually a stack of imprints, I think on the wave 7 hourly. And then we bounced. Now, what was happening around here while probably a bunch of retail was getting chopped out was that buyers were trying to defend their wave 7 daily vector, which ultimately helps to push towards continuing a long-term trend. So using this data, again, I let the data show me what is contextual. I let the market show me in terms of its real-time price action. What is contextual for this
Like
moment?
Roblesh, your screen stopped again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mo.
You're welcome.
I let the market tell me which of my levels are contextual. They're just helping me to understand the narrative of today. And then I let the market tell me which levels are actionable, meaning when the market starts reacting more aggressively to particular levels, and I start paying attention for actually executing a position, which is what I did this morning in ES. Consolidation between these a series of vectors that were here, and I pulled that up on the fractal. And we weren't breaking this open state that I had. And so what I did was, because I'm not trying to be greedy with my entries, because I'm protecting myself with sizing and my stop loss, and I'm expecting a good move. I entered in at 72.50. It was here. And I set my stop above this open state in the case we had a spike. And we actually did. It just happens a lot, especially going into 9:30. People get wicked all the time. But I protected myself. Seeing this consolidation, we had this dip, a test down into the vectors. And so I got in. And I predetermined my TPs based off of the data. And I got fully out. I made about 4,500 across different accounts. But when I saw on NQ, we had dipped below the wave 7 daily, I had done a major trim. But then when I saw that we started reclaiming this wave 7 daily, I just fully got out. So, and we came back up, which was what I was joking about with people managing their long positions. But look at this. I mean, this is now ES. I showed you the top tick on NQ. We came right up to a set of this red zone is a set of imprints. And this wave 1 H2. So I actually calculate the H2 L1 stuff for both NQ and ES. Now for ES, I don't convert from SPY. I only just look at the ES charts here in the fractal. And the reason for that is I have learned over time that because of the amount of data that there is to support ES and the fact that it's more liquid, I'm not ashamed to say this. I learned this straight up from just paying attention to what Milk says. Um, I have greater conviction on not facing that wiki volatility that comes with trading NQ. So lately, I've actually been coming more around and trading more aggressively on ES than NQ. When I say more aggressively, I mean more frequently. But just to make a point about using the option analyzer and the imprints to show me what is the next area where we will face resistance on the next L1 or H2 move. See, look how accurate that is. 63.83 and the high of day being 63.85. So again, it shows me where they're going to try to go when they get in control. Fractal literally shows you that, but you have to allow the data over time with experience, with exposure, with trial and error to let the narrative be dictated to you by the data. And so when I wasn't in a position because I was getting ready for today's town hall. But what you could have done is that on this move up, I mean, you would have seen these vectors and this yellow box and different stuff on both NQ and ES, the pivot on NQ being defended and expected a long move. But then what you could have done is literally when you see the surging past these open states, is just set an entry, a small size. Set your stop 5-6 points above, look for an area of validation. I mean, I have another one up here, but that's for outlier. Uh, you could have done that, and that would have been exceptional. I mean, I've recently was showing execution by execution some of my trades and how you could scale in and scale out at fractal defined levels. It's really not hard. The problem is many trading strategies that are actually emotion driven and not data backed try to force that same philosophy and approach to the fractal, and it's just not going to work. You just literally have to allow data that's layered across multiple time frames and waves to speak to you and paint the picture for you and show you what is the context and where your execution can be. So people wonder, well, again, there's so many levels, Roblesh. Which one do I take? Well, take the one that's a result of the narrative that's being painted and where price is reacting to very strongly. Just size down, size down. I think most times people are intimidated by taking an entry based off fractal data because they're just sized too big. And
Your screen
you
quit
don't
again,
need,
Roblesh.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And we don't need to be. And so I encourage you that if you just try sizing down a little bit and then take some confidence, build some confidence with interpreting the fractal data, you'll develop some more conviction along the way and make money. So a little bit more about the levels. Um, I talked about the bias for the day, looking at where the next H or the next L will go. But based off of where I see the next H and the next L will go, I try to take open states within that range into account. So essentially, I'll let those daily targets be my big targets, but I let the open states in between be intraday areas of interest that could be speed bumps along the way of those daily targets. Now, if you've been looking at my charts for any period of time, you see that from time to time, I not only have normal open states dictated, but sometimes you'll see like 2x, 3x open states, which means that there are open states that I've retrieved from across multiple time frames and waves. And I indicate that on the chart to help me. So I pay attention a little bit more to that. So that's just simply the open states. I use the market maker tool, put that stuff on there for both the daily and the weekly. And then one big one some people have that are new to the Tradewell X Discord have actually been taking plays off of the median range in the last week because that has been absolutely sniping. And if you go to the spread monster, it's kind of amazing. It's really amazing how in front of you the data is. But if you go to spread monster, I just literally get these median range values, these yellow ones, and mark them down. Because the data says that I think it's over 90% of the time, at least one of those yellow lines will get hit. And so I marked them both, especially if we're starting to get a confirmed long move, they get hit. Well, neither has been hit yet, but it's only 12:30 Eastern. So it'll got a long way to go throughout the day. This is the thing though. People say 90% probability. Please don't full port just because 90% probability. Because I'm actually working on an article that I guess I'm just going to tell you guys as a little secret, but how to lose money with the fractal. Now, it sounds counterintuitive, but the truth of the matter is this data is based off probabilities, which means if you have a 95% trade, 5% of the time it doesn't work. And it's kind of funny, some people that I've been able to talk with about the fractal, they get a little bit suspicious. And it's funny because I get it. I get it. It's ironic that people are more suspicious about data than they are about just drawing random trend lines and random boxes that really don't tell you what's going on in the market. Trade as an 80% probability. I mean, I would, from the way that I have learned about how I lose money, I'd much rather take an 80% probability trade that I could see the data for than one where somebody told me that there's some block here that can give me an entry for a long. It's just the way that I viewed things, and you could actually see. I mean, these levels work, and so I use the statistics in Spread Monster to help me also build an understanding of the narrative that the market has been telling me. So I use these statistics here to look at the win rate. I pay attention to those higher ones, typically around 70% and up.
Your stream cut again.
Okay. I'm going to figure that out one of these days. But again, based off of the narrative that's already been dictated to me by the market, by the data, I look at these statistics and some of them just don't make sense. Or some of them are just kind of like Captain Obvious, which is okay. It's fine. Like, for example, bull count high below wall long 571.62. There's an 82% probability of that. Well, 571.62 was like all the way up here. It was like really, really high. And I thought to myself, okay, well, the narrative that's already been told to me by the market is that we're going to face quite a challenge to even get beyond 294 and 300. I discussed this yesterday in live charting, and that's a result of just looking at the multiple time frames and waves. But the thing is, you've got to contextualize the statistics with everything else that the fractal's been telling you based off of option analyzer and the fractal charts, the imprints that might be in the way of getting to a particular statistical level. And so I just stack data upon data upon data. Now, it's funny, the other day somebody asked me, And if you watch this in the future, I'm not trying to call you out, just humorously saying this. Somebody asked me, like, well, what's your win rate? I, I kind of chuckled because it's such a funny question that people uh, want to judge the data off of somebody's win rate. And the truth of the matter is, for the particular account that they were asking me about, my win rate was 53%, but my profit factor was over 4. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that people care about when they're not properly understanding that approaching a quantitative system like the fractal, we have to learn a new language.
You know,
And we have to
there's some kind of
go
to do
ahead,
with that
Milk.
too, Roblesh. So the most profitable quant firm on the planet, Renaissance Technologies, they operate on a 51% win rate.
Wow.
So if that doesn't say something.
Yeah. I'm really glad you said that. I feel like I'm in good company. but
But I mean, I just
and
wanted to reiterate that point, like what you're discussing. Like, don't be focused on win rates and R to R. Like, obviously those are components of, but it's more about risk management
yeah,
and
yeah.
systematic approach.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for sharing that, Milk, because it really is a paradigm shift for a lot of traders, especially with the myriad of backgrounds that traders can come from, whether that's ranging from ICT to supply and demand traders to people who've only have focused on market profile. I mean, there's so many areas to come from, but it's a new language. And if people are willing to put in work to learn the dynamics of something, honestly, as some of the concepts, many of the concepts of other strategies, it's worth putting in the homework for this one. And 51% win rate, I mean, when you're catching what? I mean, you could have honestly taken, I mean, I did take this one yesterday. I got in at one, it just 175 because it was right above. And I mean, this flew. I got out at this high. But this is also from the spread monster. And that's an overnight move. I mean, that was very nice. But again, when it comes to risk to reward, win rate, it I think one of the reasons why that kind of language has been forced upon people is because of the prop firm world, and I mean they have businesses as well, but don't allow that to, could I say, warp your approach to being as data based as possible. It literally will take care of itself. Well, so I touched on where I get these different, uh, and then I lastly want to talk about splicing. You heard me talk about getting those next H, next L targets, but I've been really enjoying using the splicing feature lately.
Your stream stopped
So,
again.
okay, serious. So, one of the things that you can do on the Fractal is just absolutely stellar, stellar. Thank you to the team. Is you can splice. So, for example, when you look at a normal, well, when you look at a linear chart, you're going to see and daily candles, you're going to see Monday through Friday. Fractal chart, you're going to see Monday through Friday. Well, one of the things you can do is that you can splice over particular days. So essentially, if I'm looking at the daily, every candle is going to be what I did yesterday to look at today. Every candle is a Wednesday. If I'm splicing over Wednesday, so Wednesday, June 25 Wednesday, July 2nd Wednesday. And this is like absolutely exceptional. You might think that this is irrelevant, but it's super, super relevant. Because in fact, yesterday you would have detected that there would have been white space movement per Wednesdays. If you want to know about white space, you got to read the articles talking about imprints. But essentially, if we break above this from Wednesday to Wednesday, we're going to have much less, could I say, more swift movement. It could be both ways, but more swift movement until this next notable resistance level. Resistance because we're on the long side. It would be support if we were on the short side. But that white space is very important to pay attention to. But I noted down, I took a note of this wave seven, I'm sorry, wave one daily spliced vector. So basically, that's what I call it. But spliced vector. So basically, that was the close of the previous Wednesday. So I also note that down. Now, we didn't test it today, but it actually lines up almost exactly with the median range from Spreader Monster, which, to be honest, if we got down there and I started seeing some bounces, I would have taken a long on NQ. But we didn't get down there because the narrative that was told to me is that we're showing support above these important vectors, especially this pivot. So that lined up with a wave one L2 target and was near my wave one splice vector. So yeah, that's kind of a quicker overview of how I approach this and then how I allow the market to tell me what I need to pay attention to now. I mean, I'm not trading every second that the market is open. I take positions and then allow the market to continue to tell me what's happening. You got to let the market speak to you. How? Through the lens of the fractal data that's provided. In my bias, it's the best way. And what it does is that it prevents us from making uh, FOMO retail like approaches that burn us and don't help us. So I hope that's been helpful. There's a lot more that I break down, hopefully in a very helpful way in the Substack. Thank you to whomever shared that uh, stream on, shared that in the chat. I got to give mad props to everybody who's in the RCG community and Tradewell X communities. There's so much awesome information. I really want to be very upfront and say I am a product of just paying attention to the different traders who use the fractal. And I just want to package it in a way that continues to help people. So if you have any questions, you could reach out to me. You could join the Discord, just pop in there if you want. But really, it's just a matter of expanding the community for people to know more about trading the markets in a way that doesn't have to burn you. And you can lose money in a better way. So I say this humorously, I will sue you if you steal that title from me for the article. I'm just kidding. But I hope everyone's having a good day. If you have any questions, I'll take some now as we wrap up.
Thank you for sharing that, Roblesh. I mean, data is pretty amazing, especially in a quantitative function. As everybody sees, we utilize it day in, day out, and there's so many facets of the system to utilize, to suit your trading personality type. And I think that's a key characteristic for everyone to identify first, before you jump into strategies and stuff like that. Identify, what's your kind of risk profile, what suits you as a trader best. What works for me might not work for someone else. What works for you might not work for another. But, staggering this data in a quantitative function, we can use it in all these different facets.
Yeah, I
And
want
if
to
you
add to that. Sorry,
go ahead.
sorry, Bill. Go ahead. Yeah, I have a friend. I've known him for many years now. He's never traded anything in the markets before. Um, and so he's actually one of my humorous experiment guinea pigs, where I'm having him just learn the fractal at first. And he's already profitable. And it's just really amazing to see if we just, and he's developing his own approach and he's learning a lot from being both in Tradewell X and RCG. But we can do this. It's possible. You can learn. You can develop your own strategy. You can see things that I have not seen before. But find your own, could I say, convergence across the different strategies and say, okay, this has really worked for me, and grow from that.
It's pretty amazing.
Excellent. Any questions? We'll take some before we wrap up and head into the afternoon more.
If you guys want to type questions in chat, or if you'd like to come up on stage, raise your hand and we'll invite you up. All right, I take it we don't have any questions. Oh, big guns
Cool.
are typing right now, but don't be shy. Yep. So feel free to join Roblesh's Tradewell Discord server. Check out his Substack articles. He does an amazing job. We'll see you guys in chat. If you have any other questions, we have some more town halls coming up as well that will invite users out to talk about their strategy and how they utilize the system. And we really look forward to having you guys back.
Awesome. Thank you, Milk, for having me. Thank you to the team. Have a great day, folks.
Take care, everyone.